you don't have a room here, so you can sleep in the lobby like a stray dog." With a loud thud, my husband's suitcase was dropped at my feet. The cold spring wind bit into my skin, but it couldn't match the sting of rejection. Just a week ago, when Mark had suggested this family trip, my heart had soared with hope. I thought it might finally be the moment he'd begin to accept me as part of the family. I poured all my love into preparing for the trip, eager to be acknowledged. But now, standing alone in the hotel lobby, I understood everything too well. A sharp shove from behind jolted me, slamming my shoulder into a cold marble column. "Oh, Anna, you were just standing there in the way," my sister-in-law, Heather, remarked with a cruel smile, her eyes sparkling with amusement. "You should curl up in the corner like a stray." Clutching my suitcase, I watched as Mark carefully carried Heather's bags upstairs, his expression one of casual disinterest as he avoided my gaze. "Move to the far corner of the lobby, your presence brings down our family's dignity," he said coldly, walking off with his sister, shoulder to shoulder, as they made their way to the third floor. Behind me, my mother-in-law's laughter cut through the lobby like a jagged blade. "Better than being outside in the cold, isn't it? Compared to being homeless, the lobby's a luxury," she sneered. They had booked 3 rooms, deliberately excluding me. Again. For years, I had swallowed their cruelty, desperately trying to preserve the family bond one craved. Losing my father as a child had left me yearning for new ties, for a sense of belonging. I endured everything, convincing myself that if I tried harder, if I were a better wife, they might finally value me. But tonight, standing under the chandelier's harsh light, the ache in my shoulder was nothing compared to the turmoil churning inside me. My fingers gripped my phone tightly as I felt something deep within me break apart. With trembling resolve, I took a deep breath and began to dial. "My name is Anna James. I'm 35 years old and a full-time housewife. I married Mark 3 years ago, thrilled at the idea of gaining a new family. Having grown up with just my mother after my father passed, I treasured the concept of family above all else. Before we married, I had built up $5 million in assets through careful stock investments. I never believed financial matters needed to be shared between spouses, but 1 year into our marriage, Mark came home late one night, reeking of alcohol, with tears in his eyes. He confessed to being buried in gambling debt. He begged for my help, saying he couldn't handle it on his salary alone. Moved by his plea, I decided to trust him. The very next day, I told him about my savings. That decision changed everything. Mark's demeanor shifted overnight. He began boasting to his family about my financial success as though it were his own achievement. I hoped this shared confidence might bring us closer, but instead, it became the foundation of his growing entitlement. "Anna, I'm a bit short this month," he'd say, month after month, his paycheck spent on luxuries for himself. If I hesitated, he'd guilt me. "Oh, I get it. A poor guy like me doesn't deserve nice things." I'd sigh, open my wallet, and remind myself that marriage was about partnership, but his requests only grew bolder. Mark spent the money carelessly, expensive golf gear, lavish dinners, designer clothes, while brushing off my concerns with smug jokes. "I have such a generous wife, aren't I lucky?" Heather and my mother-in-law took advantage of my generosity too, treating my savings like a shared family resource. Heather's thinly veiled sarcasm grated on me. "Mark is so lucky to have such a wealthy wife." She resented my financial independence, and her bitterness often spilled out in cutting remarks. "Embroidery? Isn't that such a grandma hobby?" she mocked when she saw the cherry blossom piece I had embroidered with my late mother. The craft was a cherished connection to my mom, but her words stung nonetheless. Over time, their relentless scorn and reliance on me drained me. I supported Heather's rent and living expenses, covered for Mark's irresponsibility, and endured their barbs, hoping that one day, they might see my value. But now, as I stood in that hotel lobby, the weight of their cruelty finally broke something inside me. Under the cold, indifferent gaze of my husband and his family, I realized I couldn't do this anymore. It was time to reclaim my life. I had listened to Heather's complaints and supported Gemma financially, all with the hope of strengthening our family bonds. At first, Mark respected my success, Gemma was considerate, and Heather treated me like a sister. But over time, everything shifted. Mark's demands grew, Gemma's dependency deepened, and Heather's bitterness sharpened. Still, I held on, telling myself they would eventually understand and accept me. "Thank you, Anna. I'll make sure to pay this month's rent by tomorrow," Gemma would say every month, her words a hollow promise. Her account was never touched, so I'd deposit $1,200 directly to her landlord to keep her from losing her home. "Mom, are you sure you've handled the rent?" Mark would ask her occasionally. "Oh, I'm managing just fine," she'd reply with a smile, pretending she was independent. It hollowed me out, knowing she relied on me while pretending otherwise, yet, I couldn't bring myself to tell Mark the truth. Each month, as Mark grew more oblivious to my sacrifices, I began seeing through his dependence, his mother's cunning, and Heather's malice. Embroidery became my refuge, my escape into a peaceful world where I felt close to my late mother. Each stitch was a quiet conversation with her spirit. But even this sacred part of my life wasn't safe from intrusion. "Anna, why don't we have tea together? Let's spend time as a family," Gemma would suggest. If I declined, her friendly facade would vanish. "How dare you act this way? Aren't we family?" Heather would join in with her sharp tongue. "Isn't family important to you, Anna?" Even Mark took their side. "Why can't you just get along with my mom and sister?" he'd say dismissively. Slowly, the joy embroidery once brought me faded. Each prick of the needle began to feel like a stab of guilt and judgment. My home, which should have been my sanctuary, had become suffocating, yet I couldn't let go of the one thing that connected me to my mother. "Anna, I want to get new golf clubs," Mark said one day, his tone insistent as always. When I declined, he leaned into his well-worn tactic of guilt. "You know where I come from, don't I deserve nice things for once?" Then there was Gemma's predictable monthly plea. I could really use help with rent again. I no longer hesitated. I silently transferred the payment to her landlord. But when I saw Gemma proudly showing off a new designer handbag, the truth became painfully clear. "Mom's got the good stuff," Mark said, grinning. It struck me then, my sacrifices weren't appreciated, they were wasted. And still, Mark's sense of entitlement knew no bounds. "Anna, you should treat me too," he joked. I began questioning why I continued to enable this behavior, trapped by a false sense of duty. Then, one day, Mark surprised me. "Hey, Anna, let's do something special for your birthday this year, just the two of us. How about a trip?" I looked up, startled. In 3 years of marriage, we had never celebrated my birthday together. He always claimed he couldn't afford it, telling me to treat myself with my own money. This time, he seemed genuinely enthusiastic. "I'll plan everything. It's your birthday, after all," he said, scrolling through hotels and sightseeing spots. When he showed me a picture of a luxury hotel with grand chandeliers and an elegant lobby, my heart lifted, just a little. As the trip date approached, Mark grew restless, glued to his phone, texting and occasionally smiling to himself. "Is everything okay, Mark?" I asked. "Oh, yeah, nothing, just stuff," he replied vaguely. 3 days before the trip, he came home early, his tone oddly serious. "There's something I wanted to talk about." My heart sank slightly. "So, my mom found a restaurant nearby she really wants to try. I thought it'd be nice to invite her along," he said, almost casually. "Why?" I whispered, feeling an uneasy weight settle in my chest. "Come on, Anna, she'd love it. It'll be family time, right?" Family time. In Mark's world, family always meant his mother, his sister, and maybe me. "Oh, and my sister will be coming too," he added, hesitating as though he knew how wrong it sounded. His explanation felt rehearsed. My birthday trip had somehow morphed into a family affair. My sister's husband and she had a big argument, so she could use the break. "You know," he added, his tone sympathetic. "This was supposed to be my birthday," I said softly, my voice trembling. "What's the problem?" "It's just family," his voice sharpened, shifting blame onto me. "So what, Anna? Are you really that against having them with us?" I swallowed my response. Somehow, his challenge felt like another game he'd already won. On the morning of the trip, Gemma and Heather stood at the station, waiting as though they'd been part of the plan all along. "Anna, we're all set to go, right?" Heather's voice was laced with sweet mockery. "Isn't this perfect? A family trip on your birthday," she added, her sarcasm dripping with satisfaction. I stood silently on the platform, my last flicker of hope extinguished. 3 years of marriage, so many sacrifices, and for what? A hollow sense of belonging to a family that never truly wanted me. I closed my eyes, feeling a faint breeze touch my cheek. "Oh Mark, I'd love one of those nice lunches," his mother said, her voice piercing and intentionally loud. She looped her arm through his, looking right past me as if I were invisible. "Sure, Mom. Anna, can you pay for it?" Mark held out his hand without so much as a glance in my direction, his attention focused entirely on his mother and sister. Resigned, I handed over my wallet, feeling the familiar weight of his disregard. "I'll have the shrimp stir-fry, make it just like Mark's order," it's what he loves after all, his mother said with a smug glance in my direction. Same for me, nothing like family all enjoying the same thing, huh? Gemma chimed in. The three of them exchanged smiles, leaving me an outsider on what was supposed to be my special day. On the train, Mark sat between his mother and sister while I was relegated to a seat across the aisle. So Mark, last night was awful. My husband, well, you know how he is, Gemma began, her dramatic complaints filling the train car and drawing glances from nearby passengers. I sat quietly, weighed down by their voices and the pointed reminders of all the things I supposedly didn't understand. And Anna, without kids or a career, you wouldn't understand what I go through, Gemma added, her tone dripping with condescension. True, Anna's got it easy, doesn't she? Heather laughed. Mark chuckled lightly, as if it were all harmless banter. They kept going, their jabs at me interspersed with barbs at each other, while Mark passively played along. By the time we reached the hotel, any illusion of a warm birthday celebration had been thoroughly shattered. In the lobby, I waited quietly as they checked in. Hello, Mr. James, your reservation includes 2 rooms, the desk clerk informed him. Mark turned to me with a smug smile. Oh, Anna, I only booked 2 rooms. Mom and I will share one, and my sister has her own. Where am I supposed to stay? I asked, incredulous. There's enough room for you, but hey, the lobby has some comfy couches. Lucky you, right? Gemma and Heather laughed openly, their satisfaction blatant. Look on the bright side, Anna, better here than outside in the cold like some stray dog, Heather added, her voice dripping with mockery. Mark grabbed my wallet again, extracting a few bills. Don't worry, Anna, we'll grab some drinks in your honor, he said as he walked off with his mother and sister, leaving me standing alone in the lobby. As they disappeared, I gazed up at the chandelier overhead, feeling a strange calm settle over me. It was a turning point. I took out my phone and whispered, "What a shame," before feigning a predicament. "Is there anything we can help you with, ma'am?" the front desk staff asked politely. Actually, yes, I spoke to the owner in advance, and he assured me I'd be well accommodated, I replied with quiet confidence. The staff's demeanor changed instantly. Recognizing the owner's name, they scrambled to assist me. Moments later, I was upgraded to the presidential suite, treated to a private dinner, and pampered like the only guest that mattered. By the time Mark and his family realized where I was already enjoying a gourmet meal in peaceful luxury. Mark's panicked texts went unanswered, his growing frustration adding to my quiet triumph. For once, I savored my birthday without their scrutiny, knowing this marked the beginning of my freedom. The next morning, I left the hotel as quietly as I had arrived, settling the bill on Mark's credit card. It was time to reclaim my life, leaving them to face the consequences of their own pettiness. Later that morning, back at the hotel, Mark and his family were in a frenzy. "This has to be a mistake," Mark exclaimed, pale-faced, as the front desk calmly explained the charges. The realization dawned on him, his card was maxed out. What kind of woman would do this to her husband? She's shameless, Heather shrieked. The hotel staff, maintaining their professionalism, informed them they'd be allowed to settle the bill later, a courtesy, thanks to my connections. But they had no idea how this would impact their social standing. When I returned home, the house was silent, and for the first time, I felt peaceful. I opened the curtains, letting in the fresh spring sunlight, and took a deep breath of relief. An hour later, the front door slammed open. "Anna, what the hell were you thinking?" Mark's furious voice was accompanied by his mother's shrill anger and Gemma's snide remarks. They berated me, raising their voices as if to humiliate me into submission, but I simply watched them, my expression calm and unreadable. "Why don't we continue this discussion outside?" I suggested coolly. They paused, caught off guard. "After all, you wouldn't want the neighbors to hear what's been going on, would you?" I walked them out and, with quiet resolve, confronted everything they had hidden. "By the way, here's the truth about the support I've given your mother all these years." Mark's face twisted as I revealed how I'd quietly covered his mother's rent for 3 years. "Starting this month, that arrangement is over," I said firmly. His mother's arrogance melted into desperation. "But Anna, please, you can't just stop like this." "I can, and I already have." I informed Gemma that her petty social media posts about me were well documented and shared with her husband, who was already filing for divorce. One by one, they understood the weight of their choices. They had bonded over their disdain for me, but now, unable to face one another, they were truly alone. A few weeks later, Mark came by to collect his belongings. "Can't we start over?" he asked. his voice full of desperation. You spent years treating me like a monster wife, didn't you? Well, I hope you enjoyed it, I said calmly. There's no need for me to act like the villain anymore. This is the end. Days later, a package arrived. Inside was one of my cherished embroidery pieces, carefully wrapped, with a note of apology from Mark's niece. It was a small but powerful reminder that kindness and understanding don't come from force, they come from genuine connection. Soon after, I began teaching embroidery classes, pouring myself into the craft my mother had taught me. Each stitch deepened my sense of peace. I had finally built my own circle of support and joy, not through obligation, but through love and authenticity, just as my mother would have wanted.